then number 3 is closer to 50% because you're using current methods and then you're looking to make those methods even more effective based upon the survey input. Is that correct?
Yeah, I would say this one's 50% because we're, like you said, we're halfway there with the survey, but we need some more information to continue on further.
I think that's fair.
Fair? Okay, good. Excellent. Well, good job on that committee, moving that one forward in just a few months. I know that was a group that was in place previously, so probably easier to move something forward when you already had that mechanism in place. Excellent. Then moving on to goal B, which is around fiscal responsibility, with your goal being to be fiscally responsible by focusing on student needs and shared resources with effective monitoring of spending and transparent community dialogue. And again, here you have 5 action items in the work plan here. So starting with B1. So B1 was for this year to really focus in a deeper dive way into looking at shared resources. And it looks like this was part of your September agenda.
Yes. Yeah. Amanda, did you have a question?
I'm sorry. I just wanted to add under A that our final goal to go along with achieving those 3 things are attending more events like basketball games and events that Corey and Carol are holding. I think maybe we should just throw that in there as our final goal to achieving those things in addition to the survey.
Okay, great. So so adding that back sort of as step 4, that the engagement committee is attending more events that have been already scheduled.
Yeah, that's what we spoke of at our last community engagement meetings, that we really want to get out there more and attend more things like games and such, in addition to the survey, maybe even bring the survey with us to those places. So I think maybe we should just throw that back in there. But I don't know what you think, Eric. It's up to you.
Sounds good to me. I mean, it's not just up to me.
General agreement on that?
Yeah.
I thought we got rid of 4 because we sort of combined it with 3.
Yeah.
I think that's what Amanda was saying, that don't forget that part of 3.
Okay, so we'll add that concept into number 3 under the status in the notes, that another method that you want to use is to attend more scheduled events that others are hosting, like games and other routine gatherings.
Yeah. So I guess, looking at number 4, if you look at it's striked out, and that was something that I did to this because when I was looking at it, and as we talked about or listened to what the community engagement had discussed at our last meeting, I thought that essentially number 3, reaching out to the best known methods for stakeholders, we were using use a variety of means, every approach method. So and again, if this was kind of like a working document from the beginning. So if there's another perspective on progress for that, I just thought it would work better under number 3 rather than on its own. So.
Okay, you good with that? Okay, you good with that, Amanda?
Works for me.
Great, thank you. Okay, so then back to B1. So the percent completion around that deeper dive this year into exploring shared resources.
So I think there's more work to be done on that. I know when we had, our September meeting and we talked about, our budget priorities and stuff. I thought that would be a good budget priority, but as far as like percentage complete, maybe 1% just because we talked about it, but really haven't looked into exactly what that would look like. And so I think there's a lot more conversation that, could be had on that level.
Any contrarian point of views to a 1%? Okay. So noted that you talked about it, but much more to do in terms of actions.
I think so.
Given that low number, I'm going to have you all articulate, what is your next action around this? Have you be more specific around what is the next action?
Amanda?
I think we should, it kind of goes hand in hand with our consolidation model that we're looking at. I think maybe the next step is to document and collect all of the resources that we are sharing between the schools. And, we know it's the nurse and, those kind of things, for example, but I think maybe our next step would be to just list what is shared and kind of figure out from there.
Makes sense?
Yeah.
Okay. And I'd like to just have you identify, so we've got the next action, who would do that and by when?
I think we'd do that as a board.
Okay.
Would be my thought. We would, and then Matt?
I don't know if we have all the visibility there. I feel like we'd miss some things. I feel like administrators would need to be involved there.
The board administrators. Okay. And what would be a by when that you'd like to do that next action?
I'm speaking up just because I just went. I would say, I think as a board, we decided we'd get into these discussions really after the budget passed, so we could not confuse folks and really spend dedicated time just thinking and having these discussions. So, sometime after. But that was the perception I had. But if others want to chime in.
I would think if we had the list by the end of this school year, then we could really dive deeper over the summer and have a plan for like next school year's kind of deeper digging with the rest of our discussions. But I agree that we should be careful how much we bring up before then, just to not confuse people.
So by July.
Or even June.
Probably before we go into the next budget cycle.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
maybe even May, because really the list isn't going to take very much. We just need the admin and ourselves to compose a list, who they are and what they share and what percentages are spent in each building. So maybe even May isn't a bad time to look at what is shared.
is that reasonable, Eric, for a May agenda item?
I mean, it's really hard to say what could come up between now and May.
Okay.
So, I thought, by the end of June would, just as like a just in case. So we're just
Okay,
saying like
yep.
the last,
By
as
the end
the
of
latest.
June, but if it can be done sooner, you'll
Yeah.
move it up.
Yeah.
Sound reasonable? Okay, great. B2, so this is around exploring consolidation models, and I understand, Cara, that you brought forward a model and began to lay out a plan here for exploring this with a timeline. So let's first kind of agree on number 2, and then we'll look at number 3. So in terms of your percent completion on B2.
Maybe. Oh,
I feel like we've asked for information from like maybe 10%, because I feel like we've identified what information we needed to inform what models we want to explore. Or maybe I'm wrong.
Okay. So you've identified what information is needed and you've asked for that information. Okay. And you've laid out sort of these major phases.
yeah. So I mean, specifically, like as far as what models looking at, I think, we talked about, basically having like a pre-K 1 through 3 and a pre-K, 4 through 6. But that conversation led into basically how we're going to do the work of this.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of led into number 3. So, I mean, as far as like percentage goes, maybe 50%. I don't know. I'm not sure how much more can be done on that level. I think before we continue that, we're looking at like the assessment piece of the timeline.
Sure.
So I don't know if everyone else feels that way, but yeah.
You're right. I think we've gotten to the point where we've asked for enough information. So maybe the next time, the next step is establishing what's next.
Okay. So I'm hearing on A2, you're sort of at 50%. You've kind of laid out some basic models, and then you identified the information. You're waiting on that, and so then you're moving on to step 3, which is to set the timeline for the process and the future visioning. And what I see here in the notes is that you have laid out the timeline in 4 phases, and you're beginning phase 1, which is the assessment phase. Okay. And so relative to this overall process that you envision for step 3, what percent complete would you say you are in setting your timeline for the process and future visioning?
I would say, since we set the timeline and we kind of started the first phase, so we're 25% of the way out of 4 phases.
Yeah.
Would be my thought, but yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of conversation around that, and ultimately, as we talked, we could get halfway through it and then decide this is where we're at, and then it would.
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely one of those complicated processes. You could get to 99% and then still have a lot of work to do.
Okay, yeah. Amanda?
I just wanted to add, again, I know we've said it a lot in previous meetings, but maybe for those that are here tonight that don't know, that it's just a discussion and a gathering of information. This is not something that's happening tomorrow or even next year. This is just an investigation, I guess, that we're doing, and just data collection.
Yep.
Right, so 1 quarter. And it sounds like for this, I'm not going to press you to identify next actions because you're clear on your next actions, right? You've got this timeline and this process. Fair? Okay. Step 4 then is really something that it looks like here, according to your timeline, you're planning to do later on. more of a summer activity. Is that right? So is it fair to say that number 4, you haven't started, nor did you plan to start that yet?
Correct. Yeah. I think, we talked about and liked the idea of having, the community forums. The previous year we had a community forum around budget, which I thought was really good. But, one thing, I didn't think about then is when are we going to have these community forums? So I would say that, it's definitely something that, we have to discuss and work through. And then of course there's the why. Why are we going to have a forum? So.
Okay. So the next action around that, so I'll record that as 0% complete because you hadn't planned to start yet, but your next actions are deciding when and why to have community forums. Forums for community input. Okay. And it looks like the B5 is also something you hadn't intended to start yet. Is that fair? So that also would be at 0%. Any other progress updates on B that we haven't yet mentioned? Going on to goal C then, which is around student preparedness. This goal is around focusing on the whole student's growth and preparedness for advancement with regular monitoring of progress and programs, with 4 action items under here. So number 1 is the preparation and choice information by the Community Engagement Committee. What % completion have you had on this item C1?
Amanda?
I'd say it's really only fair to give this like 10%. The Community Engagement Committee spent a lot of time discussing it and coming up with ideas of what we thought might work, but the reality is we really need the admin to kind of schedule holding something for that choice informational thing. So I'd say all we've really done for CEC is, kind of collect ideas, but I don't think we're very far in. I know Carol had said she'd be happy to hold it at Wells, and we were kind of deciding if it was a daytime or nighttime or a weekend but nothing further than that. And we also would then need like counselors and such to assist in reaching out to other schools, because we felt it wasn't really fair for us to try to plan something when it's really the admin's building. So we didn't want to be overstepping in that.
Okay, so you've got clarity around the next steps around that. Okay. What would be a reasonable by when on that if the administrative staff begin looking to schedule this? What would be a reasonable on that next action? By when could that be? Should that be accomplished?
I would think it would be fair to say maybe it's something we try to accomplish over the summer and even hold a forum maybe over the summer. I don't know if that's even an option, but that would be my thought. I don't know how Matt and George, they were also in the last conversation, but
I mean, I would like to, this is for just to level set here. This is to have representatives from other schools come in to, let's say, Wells for like an open forum so the kids could understand where they could go after school, after the elementary schools. Is that right?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
my goal would be to have that experience for them this year. So I think we were sort of saying springtime, because that was the lead time that they needed in terms of like sending in their applications. So I would like to have that experience for the students this year if possible. So I'd like to shoot for it soon.
I think it's more than just giving them the options. I guess it's more like an explanation of choice and what is choice and what opportunities do members of our community have with us being a choice district.
Meredith? You're muted.
We're real late for this year. Ideally, you'd want to be doing this in the fall. And I think an overview of understanding choice is important. And then it's really up to the area schools to send representatives in like a craft fair kind of way so that students and families can visit the representatives at each of the schools all in one area, you know, in the gym. But it really needs to be done for next year even, you know, we're too late for enrolling really in the fall for, not too late. We're late.
Okay.
Definitely late for all choices. Let's put it that way.
Meredith, does Long Trail have an open house?
They actually go to other schools, and I guess other public schools do this too, and attend programs in different districts. They also invite students to shadow at the school. They do some, I think, over the summer prospective student stuff, but that's for enrollment for like the following spring applications, because their applications, like their middle school is almost filled right now. Their 7th grade has no room left in it.
So I guess in regards to C1, I'm wondering how much of this can be completed by the committee, and just wondering if this should be a discussion that we have at a regular board meeting with administrators. So that way we can have this discussion and set timelines and not like this kind of timeline, but I guess expectations and I guess figure it out in a meeting where we can take action on it. So
the most important thing is really just getting the concept of what choice is for our families.
Yeah.
And that's a pretty easy thing, but organizing representatives from schools is a little more challenging, but basically set a date and they'll send representatives.
Okay. Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. There's going to be a certain amount of, I guess, working that can be done that is beyond the board level, you know. So, yeah, so I think, yeah, 10% sounds reasonable to me, because there was a lot of community engagement, community discussions, and but I think moving forward, that might be something that we do in a board meeting
Okay.
with administrators. Like,
Okay, so what I'm capturing is 10% completion, and the next action is that you want to put this on a board meeting agenda so that the board with the administrators can have that conversation and begin to identify tactically how you're going to accomplish this for this next school cycle.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
that's my thought.
And then C2 is, this is really the board level expectations and understanding of the various assessments. Without, your note here is without getting into the details of the assessments. So your progress, what level of progress have you made on C2?
0. And I think that note was a carryover from the retreat, but
Yeah, it was.
My thought on this was we haven't done that. But I think it's important with the assessments and some of these newer assessments to really just get an understanding of it. But, yeah.
Okay. What would be your next actions around this?
Well, I think it would be, I don't have anything planned, but just off the top of my head is, I would just say that as we see the assessments as they come to the board, there's that opportunity for questions and to kind of figure out those assessments. But I would imagine that the next step would be just to have, if how do I word this?
Have the data guy give a presentation about the assessment itself, not just the results of the assessment?
Well, the data guy is now a data gal,
Oh, God.
and
The human being who provides us the data.
yeah, something along those lines. I mean, I've seen like the VCAP assessment, the VTCAP assessment, and to me that there's a lot there that I think I don't understand just looking at it. And so my thought is when we see these assessments, that's the time to really just ask those questions. And other than that, I don't see how else,
Okay, so what I'm hearing is you haven't started it yet. Looking down to number 3, though, you have set a calendar. So what I'm hearing is the way you want to accomplish C2 is as you move through that calendar and those results begin to come to you, that you want to couple learning what the assessment is with getting the data.
Yep.
Okay?
Matt?
Thanks, Eric. This might be a non sequitur. I hope it doesn't take us off the path, but I feel like the data person comes in, gives us an overview of how our students are doing, and then it feels short and compact. And I think I'd prefer to have like multiple days on that, multiple board meetings on that session, like on that topic, just so we can really get into it and maybe prepare questions after going through the first session to the second session. Just because it does give us some overview. It does give us the only metrics we have on our students, and frankly, some of the performances haven't been great since I've been on the board. So I feel like we need to spend more time on that.
Okay.
But that's my 2 cents.
Amanda?
Thank you. I kind of go hand in hand with Matt. I guess I agree that sometimes the information is a little much, and I wonder if maybe part of this goal we can ask for like our scores against like the state and the national scores rather than the growth. I think that the growth is important, but I think we get pitched the growth and we miss the comparison within the state. So I think that maybe part of our understanding is looking at both parts of that, not just one or the other. Do you know what I mean? Did that make sense? You look like I confused you.
Who, me?
Yeah.
Matt?
Amanda, I think it does have comparisons on there against state and national, but I think I'm also interested on like the action plan. Like again, I'm not going to get into the details and tell teachers or administrators how to do this, but I want to know the why and the how we're going to improve things. And I don't think we spend enough onus on that, like enough attention on that. And I'm not going to try to tell people how to do that, but like, I don't know, but I just want to know there's a plan there and how we're achieving it. Is that getting too much? Is that getting too much into the weeds as a board member? Or, I think we should take some more responsibility on that. Like, just because the way things trending, I think we need to get those scores up.
I don't think it's asking too much. I think, and that's why it's on here under C, student preparedness, because understanding what we're getting as a report and student data and assessments is important, because how do you explain that data if you don't understand it, So.
And I think part of the reason we brought up this was that because our schools are so small, we're always going to fall below the 10 student cap. So we're never going to be able to drill down to classroom or grade specific information for the large majority of our students. So we need to understand the why, not just kind of what the numbers are.
Good. I think I've captured that.
Okay.
Update the plan with those notes. So then in terms of P3, so you've set out the calendar. Have you set out the board calendar around this for the whole year?
Yeah, it just basically aligns with the GRCSU calendar.
Yeah.
And I think when we did it back in October, I think that was sent out. Yeah. So.
Okay, so 100% you've set the calendar.
Yes.
Okay, great. Excellent.
And from what I understand too, and correct me if I'm wrong, like the VIT cap assessment that comes out later. So they do the assessments in the spring, I think. And then once that is released from the state, and then last year, I think there were some issues. So a lot of that data was kind of late. And so I don't think we looked at it last year, just because of the issues. But
last year was the first year of VidCap,
Yeah.
and it had been embargoed for a very long time.
Yep.
So, and with FastBridge shifting to a new assessment, you had the discussion in the fall, which was basically just an overview of what the assessment was. But next month, and that's where it's on the calendar in March, we will see, Carol and Corey will present their data. And Matt, exactly what you're asking for was, here's what our data is showing. Here's what the next steps are. Here's what our action plan is. That will occur at the next meeting. So we already have that in motion, ready to go. So, but our frustration with VidCap is similar to what it was with the older assessment. Is part of the promise that has been made to us is that we would get the results back sooner, particularly now that it's shift to a computerized assessment with it, prior to the end of the year, that staff administration would see scores, and therefore they would have the opportunity over the summer to look at units, look at lessons, look at just overall, just identify strengths and weaknesses within our curriculum and make adjustments. But when they delay this, we're not seeing scores till December the following year. It makes it very difficult when we're seeing these scores 6 months after the school year started. So we have shared those concerns with the state. But like I said, we'll wait to see what their level of responsiveness is. But we have no problem. All your points have been duly noted about providing more information to this board and to other boards about these assessments, and allow you to ask questions around how well our kids are doing. To be honest, I would love to have more conversations about how well our kids are doing, what the next steps are. I think that's what our conversations should be centered on, is around that. Our students' academic success and growth. Amanda, thanks.
Thank you. Amanda?
Could we add a number 5 to this? Just because it's called student preparedness, and we seem to focus on like our test scores and assessments, which is important, but I think possibly a number 5 could be looking into like what other schools in 7th grade, what their, I guess, expectations are, and see if our 6th graders are matching up to that. And that would be the preparedness for them to leave our school to go on.
The group comfortable with that idea, adding a fifth step?
I like this step. I just wondered, like, how do you measure success with it? Is it like a conversation with new 7th graders 6 months after they got there? Is it meeting with guidance counselors before they go to figure out what they need 6 months before they leave 6th grade? Like, how do you measure it? But yet, I love it. Yes, we should be like talking to the next step always.
I just think that with us being choice, there's a lot of opportunities for them to go many places, right? So like Granville's in New York, so the standards in New York are very different. Long Trail's a private school standards are very different. Mill River and Poultney are not, like, so I just think there needs to be some kind of generalized expectation that our students leave with. And I'm just curious, in comparison to what the 7th grade are expecting, where we're at with that.
Meredith?
I feel this is a conversation I've had many times over the years, and the preparedness is to go anywhere, because for what it's worth, they could be moving to another state. Preparing specifically for any school is not the objective. It's being prepared to go anywhere.
Right. And yeah, I guess I think that's kind of what I was trying to explain. Like, look at standards outside of RSU. Maybe that's a better way to put it. Look at other supervisory union standards and see if we are in line with our 6th grade entering 7th, rather than just within our supervisory union.
What I would suggest, rather than modifying your work plan from what you approved in the fall, I think capturing this as a note in the status would be the better place to go. This general idea, as you're saying, it's part of the why you're doing steps 1, 2, 3, and 4 is around preparedness. So capturing this idea of looking at schools' expectations for 7th graders outside of the SU, sort of capturing that as a note, rather than amending your work plan this part into the year. That seem reasonable, Amanda?
Yeah, it's fine with me either way. I just, it was a discussion that we'd had many times. So I just felt like it should be noted somewhere. Wherever you think it's appropriate is great.
Great. So then just on C4, then just to round this out, C4 is around your board level monitoring of the trends in test scores, progress, and programs. So is my understanding then that hasn't yet started this year. So that would be 0% for this year so far?
No.
No, it has started. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, so we saw some fall data.
I see.
And then, as Superintendent Sell said, that in March, we're going to look at winter data.
Got it. Okay.
So for Fastbridge, and then I don't know about VitCap, but again, it's when it's aligned with the GRCSU assessment calendar, then I think it'll come down to the board level. And of course, it's definitely something that we're watching out for. And I think as a board goal, or just when it's available and it's there, we'll get to it. So I would say, we're, a good third of the way
Okay.
into it, you know, just throwing
Okay.
out a number.
That makes sense? 33%? Third of the way through what you have planned. Okay, great. Excellent.
And just one other comment, this is on the SU level. We talked about visiting other schools within Greater Rutland County.
Yeah.
And, you know, one of the things we should be including if we go to West Rutland, talk to their 7th grade teachers, like, what do you expect our students to have if they come here? What are you looking for? Can't do that with every school, but we could do it within the SU at least. I don't know if that should go a note under 1, maybe.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. That concludes what I had planned. I know this was a new step that you all wanted to try to,
Yeah.
you know, formally assess your progress. From my point of view, it was a good discussion, right? You know, just to be 6 months through and just step back and say, how are we doing? Are we on track with where we want to be with this plan? And identified some good next actions.
Absolutely. Yeah. I totally agree. I think it's great. And then, you know, we all have this conversation together, so we all know where we're at, what's going to happen next. I like it. All right. Great. Well, thank you very much, Kathy. We appreciate it. All right. So that concludes board goals. So we're going to move on to reports, so superintendent's report.
Yep. Thanks, Erica. I have a few items just to touch upon. This is the time of year where we're finishing up our final preparations for town meetings. So the Wells Springs annual report booklets have been printed. I do believe we actually brought hard copies here to the board meeting for board members. So for those board members who could not make it here in person or attend remotely, as with all community members, you can pick them up at the schools, at the post office, as well as the town office as well. So, and we will be have the annual report posted on the website by the end of this week. So we are working on that, but the hard copies are out. They're ready for public consumption. So if you're having a hard time finding them, please reach out to myself or Christine McGinnis or Louis Malazzo. We'll make sure that everyone has a copy in hand. As I said before, our Middletown Springs and Wells have finished up their mid-year Fast Bridge assessments. Our Corey and Carol are working with their teams to, and teachers to analyze the data, take a look at where they're at, what sort of growth we've seen. There hasn't been as much growth as we would have liked. We're going to start to identify what the next steps are, and we'll have that presentation at the March meeting. Our goal would be to have the presentation or the data in the board folder the weekend before, so you have an opportunity to kind of review that and have questions ready to go for the meeting. So hopefully that you'll not wait until the meeting to try to pour through that. And if there are questions that bigger questions that you may want to ask of myself, Carol, Corey, or Lisa Madison, who is our oversees curriculum instruction assessment, please let us know so we'll be ready to answer those questions at the meeting themselves. A lot of times when we have questions put on the spot, we may be able to answer them, but we may have to get back to you. And I think just out of public interest, if there's a question you really want to have asked, please just send us an email so we're come prepared with the information ready to go for that meeting. The legislative update is in your packet. It's rather lengthy. I'm not really going to comment on any bills specifically. I think we're all aware of some of the things that are going on around Act 2027, which doesn't really impact our Wells board. So we're not really going to discuss that here. There are a lot of bills that are still in committee that are being rewritten in committee. As they move out of committee, if they're, have serious, consideration about moving into the House and to the Senate, the governor's floor, then that's something which we'll keep you, keep you posted on, particularly the impacts on our, our schools. The last piece is, as I've discussed with all of our other boards, February is Board Recognition Month, and I just want to take a quick moment on behalf of the GRCSU staff, administration, just to publicly recognize and thank members of our Well Springs board. I say this, but it is true that there's a misconception that being a board member is just showing up for one night a month, and that's all the work is. And it's much more than just that. There's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes, where you're working with teachers, administrators, community members. There's just a lot of work to be put in for it. It is a very thankless profession, occupation, say, for our individuals. But thank you for all your hard work. We appreciate it, particularly as we enter tough budget cycles. But I do appreciate all the work you do. So thank you. And I'll end with that because I know Carol and Corey have some items they want to discuss with you. So I'll take any questions first.
Meredith.
Could you just make a basic, I know you don't want to go into the weeds on 127, but it's really important for our community to understand that we're not in a position where we are considering any sort of delaying of our vote or changing our budget. I think that's a really important thing to quite
Yep. Yep. So as we're all aware of, Act 127 used to have, it currently has the 5% cap, 10% cap, which did not impact the Well Springs board. It impacted other schools or districts, particularly Rutland Town School District was the only district within the SU that the 5% cap applied to. Basically, what would happen was individuals realized or districts realized that if the cap applied to you, that you could go all the way up to 10% in spending or 9.99% in spending and not impact your tax rate. And so what happened was some of these districts said, hey, we have a lot of capital improvement projects that we need to do, so we can find a way to add, X amount of dollars, $1 million, $2 million, $3 million to our budget and not impact our tax rate at all. And what that did was it just, it inflated, the ed spending across the state and impacted, obviously, all districts and taxpayers. So the legislature realized this and then, is currently working on H850, which is emergency legislation, which changes that, which removes the caps. In doing so, they have given boards an opportunity, whether through Act 1 or H850 when it is voted, which we don't know when that'll happen, maybe, next week, week after, the authority to revisit their budget, rewarn their budget, and push back the voting of the budget no later than April 15th. Well Springs is not going to do that. There is no need for Well Springs to do that. So we'll still be voting on the budgets at town meeting. We've looked at the numbers. Lewis is not here. He being Valentine's, he had a date night with his wife. But there's no need for Well Springs to revisit this. Well Springs is in a good shape. The board, the administration has done a really nice job of being fiscally responsible. So, but I just want to reiterate that we will not be pushing back the votes. We, what has been warned, it's in the packets and information. That's where we're at. So that makes sense, Mayor. Is that what you're looking for, Meredith?
Yes, for the most part, and to make it perfectly clear that any ballots that have already been sent out for early voting are totally ready to be used and will not be being changed, because the state has made it very clear that the town clerks are supposed to be responsible for getting that information out. But I feel like the boards need to get that information out because there's a lot of confusion in the public in general as to whether they should be voting their early ballots or how their districts are proceeding. So I just wanted to clarify that. We're going ahead just as we are.
Correct. Yeah, the ballots that have been sent out are the correct ballots and will be voted on at town meeting. So we will not be changing anything. There's no need for us to change anything at this point. So other districts may look into this, but from my discussion with other superintendents regionally and across states, I think most districts and SUs are going to move forward with their budgets at this particular time. So
If the board is fine with it, I could send out a front porch forum post basically saying that as well, even in regards to the ballots that have sent out, if you like.
I think that's a good idea because, you know, not that many people are really going to see this. And, you know, it's such a big news piece right now. And it's really easy to think things are different than they are for our community.
Sure, it is. Matt, you had your hand up, or?
Yeah, it's not important. We can move on.
Okay. All right. Yeah. All right. Any other questions for Superintendent? All right. We'll move on to principals reports. Let's see. Carol's I'm looking at Carol first, so.
I think one of the things I did not have in there is that our sixth graders are going to visit Granville High School right after break, so they'll begin the visits. They go to Granville and also, just kind of a couple of celebrations. We had, Eric actually came in and did a week-long yo-yo kind of workshop with our students, and I think we were a little bit remiss in not having him demonstrate prior to sign-ups because I think our kids did not understand what was going to happen. So he has agreed to come back, and he's looking at me like, did I really agree? And the kids are really excited about it. We have students who have yo-yos out all the time, like when they're outside, and just they share tricks at Monday meeting afterwards, and they're excited for you to come back. I mean, it was really a fun week. We also, let's see, the whole school went snowshoeing, and I kind of want to give a shout out to Deb Winpenny, our teacher. She took classes all day long from pre-K through sixth grade, and then outside just loving it. And the kids were really thrilled. They were disappointed the snow's gone because she had planned on 2 additional days, and we just haven't had the snow for it. So they were all hoping we were going to have it. We're pretty excited that Greg Connors and Bill Gardner came through and kind of assessed our security cameras, and they're going to come in and update that in our PA system. We did a lockdown drill this week, and it's very difficult if you're in this room and downstairs in the library for anyone to really hear what's happening. So we make it happen, but it's kind of one of those things that I'm really glad it's being addressed. And Corey and I had talked, we did provide the substitute percentage numbers of like how many of the positions get filled, and the averages are in part of the report. Thought that would be pretty interesting for you to read. And I think upcoming events, we're doing, instead of our black light karaoke this year, the next event we're going to do is called Let's Glow Read, and it's going to be here on the 29th of February. We're hoping that we get some participation. It should be kind of fun reading events, and it'll all be done under a black light. And then we have a knockout tournament set up for March. And I just want to reiterate what Chris said about thank you to the board for everything that you do for our schools. It's really important and it's really valuable in all of us. That's it.
Thank you. I had a question. SAEBRS testing.
Oh, Sabers. It's our SEL testing. So we look, it's done through FAST. This gives us kind of a feel for how students are feeling about school. So they do part of it, and then teachers put in their input for how they think that kids are doing, and it kind of gives us kind of a rating between, are they at high risk, are they at low risk, or needing some supports in the classroom, social emotional.
Okay.
So Eric, if you'd like, we've done this with other boards, we can work with Carol and Corey on provide more of an overview around Sabers and provide a report next month along with our Fast Bridge.
Oh yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, because I think I've heard of Sabers, but just as reference, but I didn't understand what it meant or.
We just reviewed the winter data today.
Okay. Awesome, that'd be great.
Just a question on the staffing issue, getting subs. After the numbers, figuring out the numbers, is it a daily occurrence? Every other day?
Daily, yeah. I would say most days we're short-staffed by at least one. I taught the library last month. I think Corey does the same thing, but we move our parents around. I feel really lucky that our staffs are the way that they are, because we will certainly call on somebody to make a change right away. Our staff has been really flexible and supportive, but some days it's difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly depends on the month. This month has been a little bit better, but leading up to this month, it's been a challenge. Today I was using teacher and filling in as my admin assistant. It, for us, it's really hard to pull one-on-ones.
Yeah.
So if we have somebody who is sick that day, we're able to pull, but otherwise it's usually myself that I want to serve.
I'm just wondering if cost effective, because we do get subs sometimes. Pay for them. We had a part-time district sub for both schools. Not a full-time position, but half-time or something like that. Someone that we say, we're going to be working at Wells or Middletown Springs.
So I think one thing we could talk about it as we approach next budget is something which was used, say, in the Chicago area that they call them cadres, and you would employ individuals who would be, subs, and they would be, deployed on a daily basis as needed, but on days where you were fully staffed, there are other duties or things that we take a look at. So that's something which, if the board would like to discuss, that is one way to address an issue around, shortages around substitutions, having something like that in place. So.
Yeah,
Sure.
it'd be a good idea to look into it anyway.
Sure. Yep.
Okay. Cory?
So one of the things that I've started asking my staff at faculty meetings, we start off every faculty meeting now with celebrations and shout outs. And oftentimes the celebrations and shout outs are very staff-based, and they are, but they're also very student-based. So I thought I would share some of what my teachers have shared over the past few weeks. So our students in second grade, they've been working the past several weeks on report rating with a focus on ocean animals. And just the second grade teacher had just mentioned just how far they've come with their writing, and that they've been writing paragraphs, which is a big deal in second grade. Mr. Kanan reported that his first graders have been working really hard on reading, and they've made great progress with students who are now independently. And that some of the biggest celebrations is just the love that students have developed for the books. Some of them choosing to read as opposed to other activities during free time. Our 5th and 6th grade students have been partnering with our kindergarten students and leading a mindfulness session every Friday morning. That's been a great way for them to develop that buddy relationship with the younger kids. And then our 5th and 6th grade students, we've partnered with Up for Learning. Again this year, they had their first session today. So our Up for Learning sessions will focus on looking at the school climate throughout the building and the students' problem solving, how to improve climate and make the school a more enjoyable place for all. Similar to Carol, Mill and Greg had stopped by and we did an assessment of areas of need. As I've become more familiar with the building, I've identified a few blind spots where if there are higher traffic areas that we're looking at putting in a few additional cameras. We are more than halfway through our winter sports program. So all students K to 6 participate in either ice skating at George Eddy, or they can go to Pico and learn to ski or snowboard. I have gone to Pico every week and have watched the progress that these kids have made. Some of these kids have never been on skis or snowboard, and now they're right chairlift coming down the mountain. It's just been a lot of fun to watch them. And then I'd like to give a shout out to our rock climbing team. They had their first competition the first Saturday in February, and they came second in the competition. The team has welcomed students from kindergarten all the way up through sixth grade. They've been having a great time, but second place is pretty great for a small school, but I think we have a large rock climbing team. And then also, like Carol, Eric came and joined our after-school program, which the kids really loved. We wound up having to cancel our last day, and I know several of the kids have asked if he can come back and wrap that up, so we're gonna have to snag him for an additional day as well. And then similar to Carol, I could put just our 70% of his fill rates. And then I've also included for you our anticipated enrollment for next year, so we can have a conversation.
You do the pre-K, pre-screeners soon, and then you'll know exactly.
Yeah, I just, Susan just went out on leave and she went out a day earlier, so I didn't quite know where to find that information when I was doing my report, so.
Perfect. Any questions for the principal? Thank you both. Matt?
Hey, thanks. And I also love the pictures that came in the report, so I appreciate that. Couple questions I had with, hearing of the retirement of Sherry, which is a big loss in my mind for the school. What are some of the preparations we have or going to do to find a replacement? And then the other things were like more physical plant questions I had, but we can start with the teacher.
Yeah, sure. So Sherry's retirement, it was something that she's been planning on. She has been working at Middletown. I think she said that she started there back in 1988. So she has had a very long career, and we are going to greatly miss her, but it is certainly a well-deserved and well-earned retirement for her. So our plan is we are going to post an open position. It's just going to be an elementary position. We'll get together a team, a committee for interviews. And I think what we would be looking is not necessarily for a specific grade level, but we'd be looking for the right person for our school and making decisions that way.
What's the general feel of the marketplace right now for teachers? Is it still tough, or is it okay?
I think so.
It's difficult, Matt.
Okay.
So, and I think that's where in all of our schools, whenever we lose a teacher, obviously we have plans to post, but we also have to look at, contingency plans. If we don't find someone, then how do we handle that? What do we do? I think there are some discussions that Carol, Corey, myself have had that I think we can have as a board later this spring as we look at particularly discuss around consolidation, things along those lines, what that may look like if we can't find a teacher in one particular building. And but that's just the reality of the workplace now. So,
Amanda?
I was just wondering, Corey, what classes of yours currently are combined? I know Wells has a 2-3 and a 5-6. What of your classes are combined?
Yep, this year we have a combined 3-4 and a combined 5-6.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, so back to so my physical plant questions. I saw that you're addressing some things, but there are a couple of things I thought you might want to add to the list, which is there's like a dip by the back door that continuously fills with like mud or ice, which seems could be a risk for us getting that looked at. And then and this really applies to both schools, but this could be a good time to buy an AC unit because we're not in the middle of summer, but any window unit we want to add to the classrooms to make school on these hot days, which are becoming more frequent, this might be a good time to pick those up.
So Matt, around the ACs, I know that's something which we've heard a lot about for the 3 or 4 hot days we may have over the course of the Vermont year, but one of the things we do have to take a look at is the whether or not the load that those additional AC units will place on our electrical system, and so we have to work with our facilities directors. So I asked both Carol and Corey about possibly getting the portable AC units for specific rooms. But we also have to look at whether or not the school's current electrical unit would be able to handle the additional load that would place on the building. So there are some other things to take a look at. It's not just a house plugging something in. If we plug in 3 or 4 more AC units, there's a potential fire risk around that as well. So we have to weigh it might be a lot more to update our electrical grid as well. So we are looking at this. So it's not as if we're ignoring you, and I know Mary's on here as well, who's expressed concerns in the past about AC units, but there are other things we have to take into consideration as well.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right. All right, thank you both. So we'll move on to finance. The monthly financials were in the packet. Luce isn't here with us tonight, but if you have any questions on those, feel free to reach out to him. And also in the packet was a trash removal bid. So this was brought to the GRCSU meeting. Lewis went and did some research on our current trash bid, which was with Casella, and he reached out to, and correct me if I mess this up, I'm trying to do it off of memory here, but he went out for bids, and Casella was the only one to bid, and basically his recommendation is that we stick with Casella. Now I think there's I guess Matt.
I'll just add that Casella does donate $500, at least they have the past few years, to the Strawberry Jam Run, which benefits students of Middletown Springs. So I'm good with Casella.
So that's not an endorsement of Casella, Matt, correct?
Well, I feel like, I mean, they're good. They're good corporate citizens.
Matt, that's not an endorsement of Casella, right?
Correct.
Okay, thanks. So just want to clarify that. Thank you. That's just your statement of fact. So, okay, thank you.
Stating a fact. Thank you.
Thank you.
Pro quo, is it? Okay, Amanda.
I'm just curious if we actually reached out to Martell's locally, because I know in the past when we had, had conversations with them kind of on the side, not directly as a board request, it seemed like potentially that was an option. I can't imagine Martell's would be willing to go for the entire SU, but did we, Wells Springs, get a bid from Martell's?
Well, it says, and I don't think so. Just based off the conversation last week, and then in the report, it says many small trash removal services are no longer servicing commercial accounts due to the capacity. So,
Yeah.
But ultimately, I think this is going to be like a facility or an administrator.
So Amanda and Lewis did discuss this at the SU meeting as well, that the bid did say that it was for the whole SU or specific towns or schools. So he was accepting bids for all or part of this, and we only received one bid. And so, Martell's had an opportunity to bid on this, but didn't. So I don't know if Lewis reached out, but it did say, from Lewis, as he stated in the SU meeting, that it did specify that someone could take the whole thing, or if they were going to look at part of this, that was part of the bid.
Okay, yeah, that helps. I just didn't know if it was kind of just posted generally and maybe they weren't even aware of the opportunity, or if they had been contacted directly, or kind of how that went.
Okay.
And Eric, I just want to add around the trash removal, a large part of the cost is around compost. I know that Lewis has discussed this at the SU and with others, that if we know of local farmers who may be able to utilize compost, it might be a way to help us offset some cost that instead of having, Casella charge us for this, that we could, give back to some of our, some local farmers. I know that in other districts, we work with pig farmers or other farmers that will take part of the compost. But so if anyone knows of someone who might be able to work with Corey or Carol, please reach out, let them know. And that would be a way, one, to, like I said, to, I think both parties benefit from that arrangement.
There's also a company that just does compost, who uses Mount Compost. I don't know if Lewis had contacted them.
Okay.
On the surface, it looks like they come in at an active cost for compost, but the size of the bins are different. They pick up every other week. So depending on how much compost is generated, it might be a different option. Like, and I have seen this business coming down square. Don't know if they come to the list.
Thanks, George. I'll share that with Lewis as well.
And copies.
Yeah, I remember when the state law was going through, and we talked about it back in 2018, and I think there was when the change came through, I think it was like in 2020.
Yes.
There was talk about using the scraps for local farmers, but I think again, that's done on a building level, and
right.
If you can get people to come take them and use them for their farm or garden. But okay, so if there's no other questions or discussion on the trash bid, we'll move on to new business. Negotiation committee alternate. So it is exactly what it says. So we have two people on the negotiations committee, and with only two people being on the committee, if there's chance that one person couldn't make it, an alternate would be a good way to have a second person on the committee. And I think this is kind of one of the other districts in our SU has already done this. So I guess who would like to be an alternate on the negotiations committee? And I just realized George left too.
We can do it during the reorg too in March. We assign.
Yeah. Yep. He's coming back, honestly. I can't wait until after the meeting, right? So George, we're talking about the negotiations committee alternate. Since we have two people on the negotiations committee, how does the board feel about having a third person on as an alternate? Thank you. Amanda?
Are you just looking for a motion for us to add a third person as an alternate? Like, do you want to be the alternate? And if so, I'll make the motion to make Eric the alternate. Is that what?
So when we reorganize and we set the committee and stuff, we do everything by taking action. So I guess yes in one way, but also, does anyone want to volunteer for it as well? And I think that's always kind of been a concern too, is, as a small board with 7 people, who can be on all these committees. Meredith?
I feel like in the past, we've made a motion to the effect that any member can serve as an alternate to certain committees. And that's maybe something we have to do every year during reorg.
Okay.
If I
I mean,
may
we
add,
can do it now, but I mean, we've done it during reorg, is that anybody can serve as an alternate.
Yeah, George?
If I may, I think the intent was to have one person, be the third, so that if it's different people, you're not always spending time bringing them up to speed. And if, one person misses, then you've still got two in attendance.
Yeah, I just, for convenience sake, since no one's exactly raising their hands here, it just, yeah, it's pretty thin there right now.
Do we need somebody now, or is this a question for what we reorganize?
I think so, as support staff negotiations are kicking off. I think it would be good to have someone who's, at least, on the level and knows what is going on, and someone, if as an alternate, that person can be filled in, by someone from the committee or whatever. So that way they know what's going on in the event they need to fill in. And I guess my question was, and I don't know how this is going to be structured, because I know we're going to be talking about this in reorganization on all districts, but is the alternate there at all the meetings?
So the expectation and belief is that the reasoning behind this is that if let's say that, I know Meredith and Sue are the two representatives from Well Springs. If Meredith is unable to make it, and then all of a sudden, there's items that are being discussed, that there's equal representation, that, so all boards feel equally represented. But when you have someone who has not been part of the previous 4 or 5 conversations, discussions, there's some historical perspective that needs to be considered when weighing things. So the other 2 boards have already, Corey Valley, Rutland Town have already approved that in March they will be appointing 3 individuals. And I do believe that all 3 individuals will be attending the meeting. So that way if somebody can't make it, there's still at least 2 people there, if that makes sense. Excuse me. That way then everyone still feels up to speed on what's going on. So, because negotiations can be a very fluid process.
But there's only 2 voting members.
Correct, there's only 2 voting members.
Like that's always been an issue, but okay. Well, if no one has the time to do it, I don't mind serving as an alternate. What's the matter, Meredith? Amanda?
Here we are again. Should I make the motion for Eric to be the alternate for negotiations committee?
This next month?
Yeah, because we're going to do it during re.
Okay. Yeah, I guess we'll just do it during reorganization.
Unless George wants to do it.
Well, my question is, do we need to do this now, or should we do it at reorganization? Are there any sessions in between now and then? No. Then, well, I would suggest we do it then. So we see what other committees and things we're on.
Sounds good. Okay. All right. So we'll move on to the Community Engagement Committee questionnaire. I don't know if this made it into the drive. I don't know, because I did send it this afternoon, Amanda, but I don't know, was Christine in today?
I believe so. Yes, she was in, yes.
She sent me a request for access and I approved it, so I thought it was in the drive, but
Okay.
So man, if you just share with me right now, I can drop it into the drive.
okay, 1 sec.
Good, thank you.
I can share it on my screen.
Or Eric or what?
My computer.
You should be able to drop it in the drive too, though. Right?
What's that?
You could add it to the drive too, if you wanted.
No, I can't add to the
Okay.
Well Springs drive.
All right.
But I'll just share my screen.
Sure.
That way the people online can already get their answers ready.
Okay, I've added to the drive. You may have to just refresh. It's under, thank you, Amanda.
Yep.
I do believe it's titled WSUUSD CEC questionnaire.
All right. All right, Amanda. So,
Yeah, so we spoke at the Middletown meeting and I misunderstood. I thought that at that meeting we had approved to just put this questionnaire out. But after further discussion at our last meeting, we have brought it back for approval from the whole board in hopes that we can get this out this week and then also, if possible, be present during voting day at one or both locations to hand deliver some of the questionnaires and just try to get as much feedback as possible. So what we have together is an introduction statement that states, in an effort to establish lines of communication between the WSUUSD board and the community we serve, we, the members of the WSUUSD board, have put together the following questions on ways to best share information with you. Please provide us with your thoughts and information so that we can better serve you. And then I also put this into like a quiz format that can be emailed to all families and PTO and FFE members and everybody as well. But what you're looking at is just the Word document. So the first question is, what is your relationship to the school district? And we felt like that could kind of be like the qualifying question, right? And then second question is, what is the best way to communicate with you? And would you like to provide contact information in hopes of receiving email addresses or cell phone numbers or mailing addresses? Third question is asking, what are your expectations from the Wells and Middletown schools? Fourth question, what do you see as barriers in interacting with Wells Springs Unified Union School District? And the final question is there anything else you would like to share with the board? So our hope was that in getting all of those questions answered, we could better serve the community and better reach them going forward. And from there, we would form our second set of questions. So tonight, we're just looking for approval of these questions or any changes that you guys would like made so that we can get these sent off.
any questions, concerns about the questionnaire?
For me, the second question back to the board plan was, rather than like, what's the best way to communicate with you? Ask the question of like, what are the ways you receive communication about your community? Just trying to help them identify all the ways that they get communication already. Or maybe, I'm fine with it as it is, but that's just a thought that I had, if that makes sense.
Well, I think our intent was, right now we're using the shotgun method. We're not getting any feedback. Are we reaching people? So this we hope is more specific. How would you like? Would you prefer Facebook, email, regular mail?
No.
Right, I know, but like if you phrase it as what are the ways you already get communication, that can help identify, like if everybody says Front Porch Forum, but then over here people say, no, I rely on Facebook, then it can help you triangulate your efforts. But
Would it
it's
be
fine as
helpful?
is.
I agree. I hear what you're saying. Do you think it would be helpful then if in addition to that, we list examples such as Front Porch Forum, Facebook, email, text message?
Yeah, I mean, that can't hurt. But
So
again,
then,
it's fine as it is. But just can we kill
I
two
guess
birds with one stone?
the only reason I'm wondering about only asking how they currently receive it is because if they say we currently receive it via email, however, we don't read our email, then that's not really what we're looking for. We want to know how they want to be contacted. But if we list examples, then potentially that might be more helpful, but
Yeah.
So maybe for number two, what is the best way to communicate with you? And what ways do you receive your local information, right? Like one, and then take out the second part, would you like to provide contact information?
Because I think maybe putting a section at the bottom of like, if you would like somebody to reach out to you to talk about this, please give us your name and contact information, or feel free to share your contact information.
what
so
if
that
we just
can-
make, what if we make a final question that says, please share your preferred method of contact? That's the final question. They can put their email address, they can put their mailing address, they can put nothing. And then in the second part of question number 2, we ask, how are you currently receiving information? Does that sound like a better option to everybody?
Also, the committee spent a lot of time on this, and feel free to not change anything to get this out the door.
It's not change, I think that we keep it simple. What's the best way to communicate with you? Don't give any examples. How do they want it? And, contact information, if we can build a database of some kind for people who are not in the school communities. I think that would be a good idea.
I'm fine with anything. I just, whatever the board prefers, I really just want to get it out there. I wanted it out there last month and I dropped the ball by not getting approval last month. So anything the board wants to add or delete, I'm in favor of. I really just want to get it out there.
Okay. So I guess, my question is on, because number 2 is basically 2 questions. The idea behind that is to basically obtain, information to contact people in the future.
Correct. We were hoping that with that question, if somebody said the best way to communicate with me is via email, and then, okay, awesome. Would you like to give us your email address so we can add you to an email list at some point somewhere? Or, it's via text message. Okay, is there a way that we can set up chain text messaging? Or, you know what I mean? Just to try to see what the options are. And then if there is an opportunity for us to reach out and communicate that way, how would we then reach those people? Because if all we have is, this is a grandparent somewhere between Wells and Middletown, and they like emails, how do we get them?
Okay. Yeah. So I guess we'd be looking for a motion, board approval for this to go through. Meredith?
Could you just not, what is it here? Say, please provide contact information. Don't ask them if they'd like to provide contact information. Just say, please provide contact information. Because you're just asking another yes, no question there, and it's not very clear.
Do you think that should be added in with number 2 or
Yeah,
as a number
I think
6?
number 2 should be, what's the best way to communicate with you? Question mark, please provide contact information.
Okay.
All right. Is everyone okay with that? General consensus?
Do we need to add, in addition to approval of the questions, that we would ask the admin to email them to parents, like with the chalkboard or however they choose, in addition to us sharing it in person and a link and all of those ways? Or is approval of the questions, or is approval of the questionnaire enough? We don't need to approve how it's getting out now.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is when the board approves it, it's going to go out for the public. So I guess any means that we use to send out this information, whether it be through the administrators, sending it to parents is going to be most likely the same approach that's done with everything else as established by the Community Engagement Committee. Does that make sense?
It does. Thank you.
All right. So if there's no objection, I think we can approve this via unanimous consent with that change. That Meredith provided. Just please provide contact information, correct? All right. All right. So having that said and done, that has been approved by unanimous consent with that change. And we'll move on to policy. There's nothing else related to the questionnaire. So we have 1 second read policy, F2. We need a motion to adopt this policy. This is the second read. I'll go ahead and move that we adopt F2. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
All right, motion carries. And then E9, E14, 15, F3, and H5 are all first reads. So let's see here. F3 really quick. That did go back to eventually the policy committee, and the language was changed, as we had discussed previously. So other than that, are there any questions on the other first reads?
The animals on school grounds policy.
Yeah.
Section E on page 2. Second sentence. Dog should be capitalized of the size. Other than that.
Oh.
And a comma before the dogs too is brought up.
Okay. All right. So we'll lead motion to warn these for adoption. E9, E14, 15, F3, and H5.
I'll make that motion.
All right, motion by Amanda. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. All right, we have no executive session. General public comment. Is there anyone tonight who wants to speak for public comment? Mary Beth?
Hey guys, I'll just make this brief. I know it's late and it's Valentine's Day. Just the one point I wanted to make was sometimes it's hard to hear Corey and Carol, and I kind of strain to hear them only because I want to hear their updates and what they want to say. On the next point that I wanted to make is I feel like sometimes we're overthinking community engagement, and maybe in March I'll be able to help more with that. But even today I was outside in front of the school just waiting for Girl Scout cookies. And I was able to meet Tom, and I feel like Tom is, I didn't get his direct position, but he's employed by the SU.
I did the tattoo.
Oh, that's great.
I might.
Yep, just one second. And he serves all of our schools, and he is a retired state Vermont police. So that was great to just meet him. And then go ahead with Dan. Okay, thanks. And then the other thing I wanted to say was about consolidation. I know that some of the families that I talk to, only because they come to me ever so often and say, hey, how was the school board meeting? I know that we've been talking about this as a board and us as members of the community, just listening to you guys since September. So I know that you guys have been doing great work since then, but I know it's always on our minds. And I just, so when sometimes family members come to me or friends or people in the community, they, the three questions they ask are why, how, and then what's the timeline. So I know that you provided more of those answers tonight, which is great. So maybe moving forward, I'll have either more information for them or just a better idea of what you guys are thinking about moving forward. And then the only other thing I had to say about the meeting, and I'll keep it short, was just the AC units. And the reason I brought it up initially is because I was a substitute teacher just a few times in September, and it was really warm. And so I was wondering, what Corey could do, and it's funny, like Chris Sell even came in that day, probably just visiting schools like he does, and I said, hey Chris, like it's really warm, you know what I mean? So I know that's another issue of updating various systems in the building, but I almost like harken back to like if the building was 55, during like maybe a March afternoon, and you couldn't get it any higher than that, like you would take pause to bring the kids in because you can only get it to 55 for whatever reason. So I just wonder if the same issue would be brought up if it was super hot. And I want to just for the record state that we do have this surplus that thankfully the board did approve last year. I think it's around 125. I'm not sure. I can always check with Lewis, and Chris would know more how much was used. And then if this budget does approve for this year, we have Wellsprings has another 65,000, and it's only specifically for capital improvement. So I know there's a lot of different issues you probably have in mind, but I just think that even if there are a few really hot days in September, moving forward, and then even a really couple hot days in May and June, we should just think about having that improved and thank you, that improved educational experience if we can for our kids, because coming back to if it was a really cold day or really snowy day or unsafe day, I'm sure Chris would call it as far as safety is involved. So that's why I brought it up initially, just because I was there when I was looking at the library and it's 85. I'm looking at the second grade and it's 84. That's pretty warm for the kids. Okay, great, thanks.
Mama.
Thank you, Mary Beth. Okay. Anyone else wants to speak tonight? All right. All right, so our next meeting is the annual meeting on the 28th. Just a couple things. Bring your nameplates. Don't forget, or we'll get a piece of paper and some crowns for you.
Didn't you collect the nameplates after the meeting last year?
No, I might have yours. I think I might. I don't know. I think I gave
I
them.
know I do not have mine.
I got mine back. It might have gotten broken by one of my kids, but I still have it.
All right. Well, yeah, I got cards.
I'll bring mine.
Yeah. Well, like I said, you can have your kids make you one. Okay. And just if you can be in person for the annual meeting, that'd be great. Really, really would. Just keep in mind, as it says on the warning, although we're only voting on, from the floor, specific things, clerk, moderator, and treasurer, you can only do that in person. So that applies to board members as well. So for the annual meeting. And then just on a side note, I did get an email from our current moderator, does not wish to continue being the moderator. So, and I figured that's important for board members to know. So we're not nominating this person as moderator. So public message, anyone who's wanting to be moderator for the district, that would apply for next year. She will continue to do it for this year. So, yeah. And that's all I have for that. So, that's everything. So we'd be looking for a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
All right, motion by Cara. A motion to adjourn at 8:04. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, motion carries. Thank you, everyone. Good night.